I am Andrew Kasprzyk, but I was born as Andrzej Michał Kasprzyk, and the reason why it was Andrzej Michał Kasprzyk because I was born in Poland. My mother and father both were Polish. My grandfather was Polish, and I come from a family of 6, my mother and father, 3 brothers and myself. And we lived in a small village in Poland where my father was a teacher, and my mother, of course, was a housewife or house person. She raised the children, and he was teaching the rest of the neighborhood. As I remember, my father had his father still alive, my grandfather. His first name was Michał, and he was the only grandparent that I remember. The other grandparents were dead before I was even born. My grandfather was one of the original teamsters. He actually, excuse me, he actually drove the coach for the local count, and that was a very prestigious position in the community over there. He raised my father and had him educated because he was an extremely bright person. That's all I can remember about the grandfather. I know that he died sometimes in 1945 when the Russian army came into Poland. But at that particular time, I did not know that he died because we were not in contact with him or the family that was living closer to him.
Well, what is the earliest thing you can remember? Oh, you crossed that out. What else can you remember from the time you started school?
Well, that is a good question. Actually, I started school when I was 6-year-old, like most of the children in Poland did. Like I told you, my father was a teacher, so we lived in the same building that the school was located. He was my first grade teacher, and he was a strict teacher. He was not tolerating any infringement. When you didn't do your homework, you got punished for it. I remember I sloughed off on my homework, and I was just in line there to get my slaps on my wrist from the father, which weren't just light ones. They were really ones that you remember that homework was a serious subject to do, and you had to make sure that you did your homework, regardless what it was. But unfortunately, I was only able to finish the first and second grade in grade school, and then the war started. And that was in 1939 when I was expected to go to 3rd grade. Well, instead of going to 3rd grade, I was dodging bombs in the local town.
No, wait 1 second. You need to go back and introduce your brothers.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I told you, My mother and father raised a family of 4. There was 4 of us brothers. I was the second. My older brother was Ted. His first name was Tadeusz, but we called him Ted. And I was second. Then came my brother George, or Jerzy. And then the youngest is Stanley, or Stanisław. The oldest one, Ted, died in sometimes 1999. I believe it's 1999. And the other 3 of us, we're still alive and doing okay.
All right, now go back to the
Yeah.
you stopped right after you were dodging bombs in the town.
What kind of a house did you live in?
Well, the house, like I told you, was a part of a school. The headmaster of the school, who was my father at that time, had the privilege of living in a government-furnished housing, which normally was a part of the school. And if the school was a full-fledged school, that is 6, teaching the first 6 grades, there were normally 5 or 6 classrooms for the accommodation of the students, but they were basically taught by 3 or 4 teachers. The principal was also a teacher, so my father was teaching like the other teachers, and we had actually only 3 teachers in the school at that particular time, and one was as required, which was less than a full-time teacher. So there were 3 full-time teachers and a part-time teacher.
So now when you left school,
Well,
then what
let me
happened?
let me tell you something about the school system now. The children were also taught religion in school. The local priest, who happened to be the parish priest, was responsible for teaching the children religion. So normally in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, there was religion classes, 1 hour a week extra class, where the priest came over and he was teaching and preparing the children for their first communion. That was his responsibility, and it was normally pretty consistent with what the state was doing throughout the history of Poland, and the church does indeed have an influence on the everyday life of the people in Poland. Now, what were the questions?
I think what happened when you had to stop going to school? What happened that made you stop school? Is that okay, Rick?
Well, basically, the war came, which was something unexpected. We thought that maybe the war could be avoided, but yet it came, and my father was called into the service in the Polish Armed Forces, and he went to war We didn't know where did he go, but war is war, so he went away from the family, left my mother and the four of us, with Stanley being about 2 years old and Ted being 10 years old at that time, maybe 11 years old. And the other two of us in between, I was 8 and George was 7. We were left alone, and of course the war started. The thing changed drastically. We were told to simply leave the village because the hostile armies, which in this case were the Germans, were coming, and everybody had to evacuate the village. And we were put onto a cart and as the family, and started a journey away from the approaching German forces. And after about a week of travel, the German forces overran us, and we were told to go back home. The journey that took about 1 week to go, about maybe 50 miles or so, took us now about 2 weeks to go back, because now the bridges that we crossed before were all blown up. The roads were not in such a good condition as they were before, because they were bombed. They suffered the scars of war. And of course, there were all kind of dead bodies around, people hanging on telephone poles, trees, and so on. Now, who committed those atrocities? I don't know. I don't think that anybody knew, but they might have been committed by both the Poles and the Germans alike. But that was the first time when I did see some dead people that died other than in normal death.
So did you get back home?
We got back home, and the only difference was that all the animals that were left behind were gone. Some of them died because they drowned in the local pond over there, and others were probably taken away by soldiers. And but the living quarters, our house and our furnishing was all intact. There was nobody in there that we know that would have plundered the house or robbed or looted the place. So that place was pretty much secured. We went home, and we haven't seen a German for about a month. And then the Germans sent a man who was wearing an SS uniform, and he was the administrator of the village. And his first task was trying to find where my father was. He was trying to arrest my father. He believed that my father was hiding somewhere in the in the neighborhood of the village, or maybe at home. So he staged couple raids on our house, and he kicked in the door one night. And I remember very clearly, he told my mother why he was there, and he asked my brother Stanley where my father is, and Stanley told him that my father went to war to kill Germans. And that really infuriated the man, because he thought that my mother told Stanley to tell him that, but we didn't even know that he was coming, so how could we do that? You know, it was Stanley's own idea where my father was.
So did you stay there? Or
Well, we did have a visit by a German regiment. They came in, and they apparently after the conquest of Poland, there were battle soldiers, and they got some period of rest, so they were allowed to stage their camp inside the village, and they took over the area where Count Poniński used to live, the lord of the manor. And of course, Count Poniński was arrested by the man in the black uniform, and he was kept in the county jail in town of Wrocław. There were also other people that this man with the black uniform arrested. There were the more intelligent, the teachers, and the not the teachers that were teaching us, but the neighboring school teachers were arrested and put into that jail. Doctors were there. They were arrested. Anybody who had any type of education was pretty much removed from the society and put in the jail. And meanwhile, they were looking for my father, and they couldn't find him. They were asking us, where is our father? But we honestly did not know where our father was. And that might have been good, because in late November, the Germans who were in charge of the prison where they kept the Polish intellectuals went on a berserk, and they killed 220 of the people over there that were in that prison. And there was no reason for them to be killed. They were just shot like dogs.
so you stayed in the house, or had you to leave again?
Well, we stayed in the house, and this man in the black uniform on the 6th of December came over with a short bodied German soldier. I mean, he was no taller than my brother Ted, who was 11 and not fully grown. He was short for a grown man, but nonetheless he did have a rifle, and we were told that we had half an hour to pack our belongings, and we're going to leave the area and the house, and we're not going to return again, because it is being confiscated for the benefit of the German Reich. And my mother decided that, well, half an hour wasn't much of a time to pack, but there were suitcases that were already ready, and the packing was done in a hurry. And one of the things that she took, and this is probably one of the very important events in our life, was she took a picture of the Black Madonna off the wall and packed it in one of the suitcases, and the Black Madonna went with us onto our journey to the unknown. We were driven over to a place about 15 miles away from the village, and put into a building that used to be a school. There was some straw on the floor, and we were told that this was a gathering place, and that we're going to be moving when they collected everybody that they thought need to be there in that particular place. So we spent in that school about 3 nights and 4 days before they took us, and they put us on a train, and the train started moving west, but the train was composed of some cars that were like passenger cars, and most of the cars were cattle cars, basically unheated cages for animals to basically transport them to the slaughterhouses. The place had no heat, no sanitation facilities, had nothing, just little straw in the corner, and somehow, I don't know by whose or what fate it was, somebody threw in 3 bags of eider downs over there, and there was 5 of us, mother and the 4 of us brothers, and a couple other people, 2 or 3 other people. Actually, there were 3. There was an old woman and a man, I don't know the name, and somebody else, another woman, a little younger, and that was all the occupants of this particular cart. That cart was locked, and we were moving for a long time. We were moving east in the direction towards the Polish-Russian border, and it was just unbelievably cold. There was something to eat. Somebody also with the eider downs put in some rye bread, but the bread was solidly frozen. But if you kept it close to your body and allowed it to thaw out, you could really bite off a chunk of that bread and chew it, and that's what kept us alive.
So how about the sanitation? How did you go to the bathroom and stuff like that?
Well, there was a hole cut in the back of the wagon or the railroad cart, and somebody pulled out some sort of a sheet or blanket, and that was the place where everybody was satisfying their needs for sanitary needs or whatever, toilet needs that they have. There was no water, so nobody really worried about anything. But the place didn't stink because the only thing that was visible over there was the cold. I mean, the inside of the car, the train car, was glittering with moisture and frost. It was so frozen solid that you thought you were in a palace built out of glass. It was really shiny.
How long were you there? How long did that journey?
About this was about 5 days journey. The train was moving. Sometimes it stopped and waited, and but mostly it was moving, and we didn't know what direction. But there was a hole that you could stick your head to and look out, and we could see, the countryside. The countryside in the winter time was really beautiful. If you were looking for picturesque sighting of the countryside, there was the snow-covered pine trees, and it was really magnificent looking type of a terrain. Unfortunately, that was not what we were looking, because we were suffering at that particular time, and we were hoping that the journey would end. And it did end for us, fortunately, on a good note, because the train stopped, and there were some of us looking out the hole. There were then one of the railroad workers was checking the wheels on the carts. He was walking along the train and hitting the wheels with a hammer. And then he noticed that there were kids, myself and George, looking out the window, and he says, "What you kids doing in there? It's awful cold." And we told him we would really like to get out, but we can't because the place is locked. And he looked at the thing, and it was padlocked. So he took the hammer that he had for the wheels, hit the padlock, and it flew open. And when he opened the door, he says, "My God, I didn't know what was going on," he said. And he left the door open, and he kept on going. And my mother said, "Okay, kids, I had enough. We're getting out here." And she got us out of the car. She got out herself, and we started walking in the direction that the train was travel along the tracks. But we didn't get very far before we were stopped by a German soldier who said, "You back on the train." And my mother said, "My children haven't eaten for 5 days, and I'm going to go regardless what you do." And she pushed us through, and this guy just stood there and dumbfounded, didn't know what happened, and let us go through. And we walked about maybe half a mile to a train station, and in the train station you could buy hot food, and that's what we got. The first hot food in 5 days. And everybody got enough of it. And of course, that was a big change from that train card. We found out that we were in a place known as Dublin, not Dublin, the Bug, a place known as Bug. And in that particular place, that was the borderline between Poland and or the German occupied Poland and the Russian occupied Poland. the Germans and the Russians settled at the demarcation line along the River Bug, and the place known as Lublin was one of the border town between the Germans and the Russians, and we did in that we did wind up in Lublin. Actually, it was not Bug. The Bug was the river that flew through the town, and Lublin was the place that my mother finally got us out from the train. And after we ate, my mother went to the local German administration office and told them that she needs permission to go back to Poznań, to travel to Poznań, that she is by herself with the children, and over there she has a family that can help. And the guy says, well, were you born in Poznań? And my mother told him yes, and he says, well, then you are actually a German, because that is now part of the German Reich, and therefore you should go back there. And he has written out a permission for the family to travel to Poznań, and this was now probably about the 12th or 13th of December when we started our journey back to Poznań on a train again, but this time in a passenger car with a nice heat and place where if you needed any type of personal comfort, there were facilities that you could take a good use of, make a good use of, and it was nice and warm, and the journey was much faster than in that freight train. Now, can we stop here for a second?
Okay, we're ready. Go ahead, Mom.
So when you got back to Poznań, where did you go?
We went back to the province of Poznań, actually the city of Poznań, where my father had a sister, or actually he had two sisters living over there. And because his place of birth was only about 15 miles away from the city of Poznań, they all kind of lived in the general area of Poznań. So we came back with the permission of the German authorities to go back, but with a little fib over there, because we were definitely not Germans. We were Poles and we were evicted, and that little thing was not told to the German authorities in Lublin. If they would have known that we were deported and we are from the train that just arrived and is standing on the siding over there in the Dublin station, probably our fate would have been different. But with a little God's help, we decided that yes, it was the thing to tell them, and we did finally arrive in Poznań. We moved in with Aunt Maria, or Mary, my father's sister, and they had an apartment consisting of a kitchen and one bedroom. And they had 3 children of their own. And here we come in 5 of us, and we were welcome to stay there. But the one thing that we did wrong, we didn't go to the local authorities to register ourselves because we were afraid that somehow they would find out where we came in originally from and why we are there. So my mother decided that we just live and the war will be over and things will be normal in maybe a couple months. Unfortunately, the couple months turned out to be long years of dreadful war. And we are living with we have arrived before Christmas, and we moved in with the people that are cramped in their 1-bedroom and kitchen apartment. And now, not only, now the occupations of that apartment have doubled. There is 10 of us instead of 5. Everything is fine because at this time the food isn't rationed and you can buy the food if you have the money. My mother had the money and we could buy the bread. Everything was fine. But as time went on, little by little, the situation has changed. Rationing cards were introduced. The Polish people were getting only so much bread per person, so much, well, basically it was 4 pounds of bread a week per person. It was 1 pound of sugar per month per family that you could get. You could not get any butter, but you could get margarine, and that's what turned me off from margarine for life, because margarine was no better than axle grease. It tasted horrible, but nonetheless, it was food. But as time went on, there started to be friction in the family. My mother decided that maybe we should split up, and I was assigned to live with my godfather Stanley, who lived about 65 miles away from Poznań. He took me in very gladly, since they didn't have any children and I was his godchild. He took me in. His wife, Aunt Anna, was a very nice woman, and she was trying to do the best with me she could. And I spent about a year with them. And my brother Ted was sent over to Uncle Kazimierz, pretty close to the place where we lived before eviction. And they lived in the place known as Kruszwica, that where the Lake Gopło is situated, and it has a great Polish tradition. It's known as the seat of the first Polish or Polish-like princess who ruled that general area. And there were the Piasts, the dynasty of Piasts lived in Kruszwica. Well, needless to say, Ted went over there and stayed with Uncle Kazimierz, and George and Stanley and Mother stayed with Aunt Maria. Well, as time went on, the war broadened out. Instead of ending, Germany started war with Russia. The Russian front opened up to the Germans, and they were conquering Russia. It looked like they may win the war, and the Poles were afraid that they probably would win the war, so everybody was in low spirits. The rationing of food and clothing went on, and actually became a joke. You could get the rations, but you couldn't get anything to eat anyhow, whether you had the rations or not. If you had money, maybe you could get something on the black market. That was expensive. But, well, the time went on slowly. Meanwhile, Stanley, the youngest, got afflicted with polio. He nearly died of fever and other things, but miraculously, he did return back to health without any deformities and without any effect of polio on him. He just suffered through about a month and a half of high temperature, and basically the doctors that took care of him said that he did have the polio. I returned back to Poznań to be with my mother, and that didn't do things any better. Ted was staying still with Uncle Kazimierz in Kruszwica, and the situation in Poznań was getting worse every minute. So one day, and I am not quite sure what year it was, but it must have been in 1942, because it was after the Russians and Germans started the war between themselves. I returned to Poznań, and mother decided that the type of life that we have in the crowded quarters and was creating problems to my aunt, and she decided that she would go to the local Gestapo headquarters, and Gestapo was the German secret police that was keeping order in the conquered country. One Sunday, she packed our bags, and once again, the picture of the Holy Madonna went in on top into one of the suitcases, and we trotted over to the headquarters. This time, Mother, Stanley, George, and we went over there, and we were asked to talk to some officials. The local guy who happened to be on duty over there was in Berlin, but his assistant was there. And when my mother explained the situation to him, he said some words to the effect that, well, you committed a dreadful crime, and you're probably going to pay for it with your life. He said, but I don't want to have anything to do with it. So what I'm going to do, I will let you go back where you originally came from, which is back to the village of Kościelec, where we used to live, to our home before the war, and register with the local authorities over there. And we feel that this particular coincidence, that the the regular man was not there, and he was known to be the butcher of Poznań. He wasn't there, but his assistant was there. That saved our lives, and we went back to. We got the permission to travel back. We were released. We were not arrested, and mother decided that we will travel, and we arranged with Aunt Maria that we will go. And the following day we went to the train station, and without having to pay for it, we had a free pass to go down to Wrocław, which was about 12 kilometers from Kruszwica, where Ted was staying with my uncle Kazimierz over there, who happened to be my mother's brother. And when we arrived in Wrocław, instead of going to Kościelec, we went to Kruszwica. And when we got to Uncle Kazimierz' place in Kruszwica, of course, his place was as crowded as Aunt Maria's, but he welcomed us and he says, well, you are here, so let's see what we can do about you. And he was a shoemaker by profession, and actually three of my mother's brothers were shoemakers. That it must have run in the family to be a shoemaker. But to be a shoemaker, you actually could make a shoe from scratch. If you had the materials, you were supposed to be the man who actually built up the shoe from a piece of leather to what the shoe should look like. He had his own little shop before the war, but that was confiscated when the Germans came in. His leather goods were taken away. He hid some of them for his own use, and it came in handy in our situation because he went to one of the guys who worked in the I guess a German or a German sympathizer who worked in one of those offices that you can get documents. And he actually bribed the man to get a piece of paper that would vouch that we have a permission to travel as current residents of Gniewkowo to my uncle Stanley, my godfather, back to Chodzież in the north of Poland. That was about 120 miles away from Kruszwica. And for a pair of officer boots, this guy provided this certificate, which simply stated that yes, we are allowed to travel to get to live in the other town in Poland. When we got on the train and traveled to Uncle Stanley, he of course didn't expect us, but we came anyhow. He looked around and he couldn't find any type of housing for us, but he had a friend in a close by village known as Rataje, and there was a place, one bedroom and a kitchen type of an apartment, and somehow he arranged for us to be able to occupy that apartment. So this time we have very genuinely approached the German authorities, and we said that we have just arrived and that's where we're going to live. And of course, the area was completely strange to us. We didn't know any people. People didn't know us, and that probably was for the better, because if they would have known us a little bit more, somebody would probably have squealed or leaked that we might have been, illegal, if that ever was known to anybody. But anyhow, we did register in the local German with the local German authorities. We got put in on the list of receiving rations, and from there on to the end of the war, we were living legally. To live legally during the war was basically living. There was everybody that was 10 years or just about 10 years old worked. There was no schools for the Polish children. There was work for them. I was originally working for a farmer who...
Hold on 1 second. Did you ever go back home? Did you ever go back to your house? Ever?
To the schoolhouse.
What?
Did you ever go back home to the schoolhouse, your original home?
During the war? No, not during the war. We never gone to the original house during the war. Once we were evicted from that place, and we never showed our face over there again. We always were close, but not in the house or in the village. Kruszwica was only about 15 miles away from the Kościelec, that's the village that we live in. And then when we got to Chodzież and the village of Rataje over there by Uncle Stanley, my godfather, well, that was completely strange place for us. We have never seen it before. We spent the rest of the war over there, and that's where we were liberated in 1945 in January.
But you worked as a cowhand or a...
Well, I worked for as a cowboy, what you would call, or a cow herder for a farmer. First, I had only one cow. That cow unfortunately met with a problem.
Tell us about her.
Okay, well, that was a family, a German family. They had one cow, and he was some sort of a railroad worker over there. At one time, that house belonged to some Polish family. The German confiscated the house and deported the family somewhere, and they moved in. They weren't vicious people. They were gentle for Germans, I would say. They were very gentle people. But nonetheless, they lived over there. I worked for them. They allowed me to eat with them, and that was a good thing, because even though we were getting rations, you couldn't buy anything with those rations or without them. Anyhow, things were getting scarce. And that was my first job. My second job, well, the cow died for some reasons, broke her back, and while I was the bearer of the bad news to the farmer, I had to tell him that his cow won't move. It was jumping over a ditch, and I guess broke its back while it was jumping across the ditch, and fell over and wasn't dead, but just couldn't move, was paralyzed, I guess. So needless to say, there was no cow to hurt after they slaughtered that cow. And I was told to go to another farmer where I had 12 cows and a dog and a couple sheep over there to tend. I worked for them for a while. Then I work for a cigar factory making cigars.
Hold on.
Okay, after the cow was disposed of, I had to find another job, and I got a job in a cigar factory. I worked in making cigars, and there was a gruesome story about the cigar factory. We were having good time one day, and the manager of the factory, who was kind of I think he must have been a fag or something, came around and he caught me misbehaving over there, and he says, okay, you come with me. And he grabbed a rope with that looked like something that you're going to get whipped with, and he wanted me to go to a cellar over there where he wanted to beat me up severely. But my mother told me, don't ever wait for anybody to hit you. If somebody tries to hit you, you run. And like Private Gump, I just run. So when the guy turned the stairs to the basement, I shut the door behind him and took off. And that's the last time he seen me over there. Well, my next job I got was with a farmer tending his 13 cows, and actually a dozen cows and 2 sheep and so on. And that was getting the cows to the meadow, staying with the cows, coming back, get them to water into the local lake, and then back to the farmer's yard, and then they would milk them and do with the cows what they need to do. The place did not, the work did not include necessarily food. Sometimes I got something to take with me if the servant for the German was there, but if the servant wasn't there, I didn't get a sandwich. I just went over there hungry, and if I could do something for myself in the meadows over there, like catch a rabbit or a duck or something, that was the thing to do. So anyhow, I did get the job with this farmer, and one day I bring my cows home, and one of the cows took off, and she got to the railroad track that I had to cross every day, and I did that for I don't know how many months. But this time that cow stood right on the railroad, and oncoming onto the cow is a train. And the train is coming in at the full speed, and the cow stands there and just look in the direction of the train. I run over there, I push the cow and twist her tail, trying to move her. She wouldn't budge, just stands there. The train is coming in like a bat out of someplace, and surely enough, the cow didn't move, and when the train hit it, it just exploded. I mean, this was just a rain of blood all over the place. It showered the blood, and chunks of, I mean, big chunks of cow were all over the place. Well, it happened to be a troop train, a German troop trains coming through. So the train, of course, stopped, and somebody grabbed me and trying to explanation why this thing has happened, and I had no words to explain this thing. Eventually, they left me alone. But I was again the bearer of bad news to the administrator of that farm over there, who happened to be the owner was a German woman, but his administrator was a German, an old man who was wounded in World War I, and he was the guy who carried the gun over there, and the law and authority. Well, when I told them, of course, you know, he was having in mind that he is going to whip me, but I wouldn't give him a chance. I just left him after I told him, and I said, if you want me, I come back tomorrow. And that was it. The cow was dead, and I had a chunk of meat from the place for dinner. I went back to work to the farmer on that particular next day, and everything was fine. I was taking care of the cows, and came fall, and I sent my cows to the lake to water, and I wasn't paying good attention, and the cows went into this old farmers who was the supervisor of the place I was working for, and the cows went on his field, and they were finding some, it was after the potato harvest, they were finding some potatoes, and I said, well, there is no harm for them finding some potatoes once they have been harvested. Well, I was wrong. The guy came in, and he walked up to me and grabbed me and took off his belt, and he whipped my rear end. And he said, this is my field. You will not have your cows on my field. And he made a point. He made my back blue and black. Well, needless to say, I brought the cows home. I went back, and it was the time when my mother insisted that I take a bath. And I did take a bath, horse bath type of a thing, and she looked at my back and she says, who did that to you? And I said, that was this farmer over there that lives. And she put my shirt on, grabbed me by the neck, and we went over together to the farmer, knocked at his door, and my mother said to him, when he met us, my mother said to him, look what you did to my son. He says, why did you do that? You brutal, and she called him names and things like that. Meanwhile, this guy's wife came in, and he looked, and she said, my God, who did that to this boy, you know? And this guy is truly ashamed that he now has inflicted, you know, bruises on me. But my mother wouldn't give him a chance to apologize or anything. Simply said that if he ever does it, she'll probably kill him, you know. And of course, you know, my mother was only 5'2", and this guy is about 6'6", and he's got a gun and a right to do whatever he wants, and he is this little woman threatening him, you know, to make sure that I don't get hurt again. Well, that was one time I did get hurt, but I wasn't expecting it to be doing that. Well, needless to say, times were changing. The war was getting a little bit better from our aspect of view, which is our aspect being the conquered people and hoping that Germany is going to get conquered and we're going to get liberated. We have noticed that their successes on the Eastern Front were not very notable. If there were any successes, there were a lot of small defeats taking back. The Allies have landed in Normandy and started the Second Front. There was a situation where we knew that there were some Polish soldiers fighting in Italy, and Italy was having trouble. Africa was having trouble. So the whole situation of the war was getting a little bit better. But while the war was getting tougher for everybody, the Germans started to get into their politics of exterminating all those undesirables, and they sent into the village an X-ray, mobile X-ray unit, where they X-rayed everybody in the village. Everybody got through this mobile X-ray station. Men, women, children, everybody had to go in there. And when the chips were down, when you exit the place, you got a little piece of paper, and there was nothing on that piece of paper except its color. One was pink and one was blue. Most of the people got blue, and I got a pink piece of paper. And when I was coming out from that X-ray machine, this guy over there, when I showed him that piece of paper, he asked for that piece of paper. I showed him. He wanted to know my name and when I was born and things like that. And nobody else was doing that, but he was taking all that things down and putting it in the book, where I live and so forth. I didn't think too much of it, but I found out that there would have been, if I did report to them as they were calling, later on I got a notice that I supposed to come into the hospital to take another X-ray or whatever that machine was doing, and I decided that I wouldn't go. And well, I guess because it was so near to the war, I didn't go. But the documentation shows that they were trying to get rid of anybody who had any type of TB or anything like that. They were trying to actually burn them. And what happened to me when I was taking care of that one cow that broke its back, that cow swung her head and she stuck the horn in my ribs, and they cracked my rib because I didn't know that it was cracked but apparently it must have punctured my lung, because I suffered like crazy for about 3 months. There was a pain in my lower back where that horn went in, and it must have been the rib that cracked. Well, it looked like something that my lungs had some sort of a disease over there. Well, when I later on when I went back to after the war, when I went back to the doctor, they actually verified that my lung was punctured at one time or was healing by itself, and there was really nothing wrong with tuberculosis or anything like that with me. But anyhow, I think that if the war would have been longer, they probably would have burned me in one of those concentration camps over there. Well, that's only my suppositions. Anyhow, we did live over there, and as the time went on, the war turned sour, and in 1945, in January, the Germans completely collapsed, and their armies were retreating, and sometimes just before Christmas, there were masses of Germans, refugees, doing the same thing what we were doing when the Germans were coming into Poland. They were heading towards Germany, and there were masses of them. The German MPs were military police were regulating traffic, throwing off carts that had broken axles off the roads, and letting the people that could travel to go on travel. And it was one of the horrible sights that you could see that can happen to civilian people, where when you see a mass of people going day and night in the same direction, not knowing where they're going, but they're just escaping from something. Well, we were living in our two-room apartment over there, kitchen and the bedroom, and watching the Germans going through towards the west, driving towards the west, and then on January 20th, my birthday, 1955, the first Russian tank showed up in our village.
You mean 45?
1945.
You said 55.
January 20th, 1945, the first Russian tank came over to the village, and he just didn't stop for anything. I mean, when the Germans that were only like 15 or 7 kilometers, 8 kilometers, 8 miles, 15 kilometers, about 8 miles from the German border, found out that the Russians are right around the corner. They just started a mass to move in, and they just blocked the roads, and the Russian tank came in, and he just went through everything that was in his way, and they made a path through horses. You could see next day, you could see the tail of a horse on one side and the head of the horse on the other side, and in between everything flattened out. People, if there were any, they were not visible because the road was covered with snow. There was about 8-10 inches of snow on the road, and where the Russian tanks came through, it was just a depression, and a bloody depression. You could see all kind of animal flesh and pieces laying around. Well, it was horrible. The Russian came in, the Germans disappeared. There was nobody in authority over there. People stopped. People were dumbfounded. They were in shock. They were horrified. And myself and my brother George, we were having fun and running around the snow-covered roads, and we seen all kind of things, and we spotted a truck, a semi-truck, a German semi-truck with front wheels and caterpillars to the back, and in that truck there were boxes of some sort. We looked at the boxes, but we left them alone and went on and witnessed when a Russian soldier was nearby over there talking to a German civilian, and the German civilian was either drunk or shocked or whatever it is. He was arguing with the Russian, and he lost because the Russian told him to go walk in, and he shot him. In front of our eyes, he shot him. Well, we went back to our house, and somehow I found out very interesting that the boxes were there. And I went back to the truck by myself. And when I got to the truck over there, I climbed on the back and I opened one of those cases, and there were a lot of German propaganda, this kind of posters. And one of them was advertising the fact that the railroad has to run for victory, and that was a German slogan over there. I took that paper and I threw it up, and the wind picked it up, and it splashed all over the place. I took another bunch of that thing from the same box, and underneath the box, I noticed there were different things. There were money. I never seen the money like this, but I decided that I'll take some of it and find out whether, because the writing was not German, so it looked like it was in Cyrillic on those notes. So I took some of those notes, put it in my pocket, and I went back to the village, and I met a Russian soldier, and I asked whether that was Russian money, and he says yes, it was Russian money. I asked him whether it was good, and he said yes. He said I got a pair of pants, a civilian pair of pants. I give it to you for 10 bill, whatever that 10 was on it, for a 10 something bill. And I give him one of those bills. He gave me the civilian pants. I didn't know what I'm going to do with the long civilian pants, but I took them anyhow. Went home, and I decided that I'll find myself a potato sack, and found one of those used potato sacks, and went back to that truck over there. That was about like well, a little bit over a quarter mile outside the village. Loaded that sack full of that money, and I couldn't carry it. It was too heavy, so I dragged it on the snow and brought it home. And when I brought it home, my mother decided that that was too much risk to keep that type of money, especially when it's Russian money, that in this time of war, in this type of a situation, somebody will try to take this money away from us and kill us for it. So she told me to get rid of the money. And I reluctantly did what she told me, but before I did that, I took one of my knit stockings, and it was just about yard long, and I made a sausage out of those bills, and I stuck 3 bunches of bills, rolled them together, and I stuck them into my stocking, and I hang it on the bathroom. On the bathroom doorknob over there inside the bathroom, and that stocking just hung there, and full of money, and nobody paid any attention because that bathroom was useless. There was no water coming to it anyhow, and if you wanted to take a shower, you could only use it as a container, and then you had to get rid of the water somehow because it wouldn't drain anyhow. So it was a problem, but it was a good hiding place for the money. So needless to say, I took the rest of the money, and when the before the Russians came in, the Germans were stationed over there, and they did dig a military latrine over there, which was pretty well used. So I threw all that money into that latrine. So I was very generous to the Russian soldiers. I was giving them those bills at will, like a drunk sailor, and they were very eager and very happy to get them. And finally, I gave it to one of the guys, and he said, "Where did you get the money?" And I said, "Well, you know, I can show you where there is more of it." And I first show him the one in the latrine, and he jumped into the latrine, start picking up every one of them, and got himself more than he thought there was. And then he was concerned. He says, "Well, is there any more somewhere over there?" I said, "Yes, there is a truckload of it over there." So he said, "Okay, you show me." And he actually took an American Jeep, because that's what they were driving, American Jeep, put me on the Jeep, and we both drove up to the armored car over there. And he looked at him and sees the partially empty container that I took some money out, and he recognized the fact that those were the German money. And look into the other things, he saw like the first one covered with paper. There were money in there, and apparently he was one of the guys in charge. He took the driver of the Jeep, and he told him to stand guard over there, and he went back. And a little bit later on, a gentleman came in a car that looked like a Volkswagen, but he was a high-ranking Soviet officer. Who the guy who drove him, he was saluting him every time that the guy turned around, and they went over there to the truck, and they requisitioned it for the use of the Red Army over there. That was my contribution to the victory of the Red Army, I guess, you know. But that was it, you know. Anyhow, that money came in very handy, because right after the war, it was the means by which we were able to sustain ourselves for almost 2 years.
How much was it?
Oh, it was. I think I had about 100,000 chervieniets, and there were, each 10 chervieniets was a good for 10 Polish złotych. So that was like 1 million Polish złotych. But anyhow, the money wasn't that good, you know. But it was money, and it kept us in food and shoes. Actually, I got a pair of shoes, and of course we could buy the things. But the only way you could really change it into Polish money was go to a Russian soldier and you want to give me Polish money. And they would gladly do that, because apparently they printed Polish money. So the war ended.
So where was your dad then? Did you hear anything from him?
Well, unfortunately, during the entire war, yes, father was inducted into the Polish army, but he was his orders were cut to go and fight the Russians. We did not know that the Russians are going to fight the Poles like the Germans did. But he went to the Eastern Front, and when the war between Poland and Russia started on the 17th of October 1939, My father was there to meet them, and not with flowers, but with bullets. Unfortunately, the Russians and the Germans were so demoralizing that there was not very much opposition to the Russian invasion by the Polish forces. He was assigned to a unit that was holding the retreat, holding back the Soviets, and the Polish armies were retreating, and he was dynamiting bridges and other things. He was in the engineers outfit. And about 3 days of battle, and the Polish army crumbled completely. The Soviets just overrun the place, and father had a choice: either joining everybody as a prisoner of war and surrender to the Russians, or cross the border to Lithuania and become what they call an intern in Lithuania. And Lithuania was not at war with the Soviets or the Germans, and father made the choice to go to Lithuania. Well, the Lithuanians took away their weapons and put them in the camp over there, and the same year, my father was in the camp, and he was trying to make contact with my mother. We did get one letter from Lithuania, and my mother kind of knew that my father is in Lithuania. She actually, before we got any letters, sent us to the school room where they had maps to get a map of Europe, and we brought the map, and she said that she had a vision in her dream that father is located in Lithuania. It's around, she was looking for a place known as Kovno, and about few miles from Kovno, that's where the letter came from. About a couple weeks later, she knew that he was over there by some sense of, I don't know, that I cannot explain. But she was 100% sure, she could have bet her life that she talked to him in her sleep.
It's weird.
That was absolutely unbelievable, you know, and she was pinpointing it to the map. And that's not the only time, because when later on, as the war went on, Lithuania fell to Russia because the Russians just annexed the three republics, three Baltic republics, before the Germans started the war with Russia. And when they annexed the republic, they took the Polish soldiers and they sent them down by Smolensk over there, and the world learned about Katyn later on. The Soviets were butchering the Polish soldiers, and they took the people from Lithuania and they sent them over there and kept them in special camps, and they were interrogating the Polish soldiers. And anybody who had any rank, like if you were an officer, you were pretty much shot on the spot. I mean, without any type of court or anything like that. You were sentenced to death, and they shot you in and buried you in that forest over there by Katyn, when the German discovered the bodies of murdered Polish soldiers. Well, my father was there, and he knew some people who got shot that way. He was under great suspicion because they could not verify where he came from. since he was from the Western Poland, and the Russians only had a certain portion of Poland and not the part of Poland that we were coming from. So they were interrogating him, and he wasn't quite sure whether he's going to survive the interrogation or not. So he was planning an escape from over there. And he fixed himself some dry bread and make crackers out of it, and packed it in a bag, and he had oil because he volunteered to paint Russian cars over there. And while he was the painter of the cars, he figured out that he could strap himself under a truck, and the truck driver would drive him out from the base where he was stationed, from the camp, and basically when he was on the road, he would unstrap himself, drop down to the unpaved road, and basically go on foot from there on, with having his food stuff in them. Well, he made detailed plans, volunteered to paint the cars and made them look pretty and shiny and colorful, and fixed the place where he was going to strap himself in. And when the time came in, he did that. He strapped himself in, and that particular night, not before, but this particular evening, they came up with guard dogs to guard the place. And as he was coming to the gate to leave the camp, the dog was pulling on his pant legs, trying to get him off from underneath the car. And so he got as far as the gate, and that was his end of the escape over there. Well, needless to say, they accused him of being a German spy. They wanted him to sign a statement that he is a German spy and everything will be fine. And he would not, because he did master the Cyrillic alphabet and the language to the point where he knew what it meant. He could understand enough Russian and their writing that he wouldn't sign anything. So he was, for his crime and the refusal to sign, he was sentenced to 5 years of hard labor in some undisclosed destination at this particular time. So after the 5 or so day trial, they wheeled him over to a railroad siding where there was another type of a cattle car type of situations ready for boarding, and they threw him in opened up one of those cars, threw him in, and he waited half a day, and he waited to the evening, and the following morning the rest of the camp was marched over there and put in the same cars that he was there, but he didn't have to walk that time. They wheeled him over there. And that was pretty good half-day walk from the camp to the siding over there. And they took all those people and they sent them to a place on the peninsular collar, which is below the Arctic Circle in the northeast Russia, to build runways, airport runways, and apparently they were building some sort of a military base over there. And he and his fellow Polish soldiers were supposed to build the runway, or at least the bed for the runway for the military Okay,
So,
to go on?
again, what
Would you like to take a break?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to hear about.
Okay, well, needless to say, the Russians were not very friendly people to the Polish prisoners, ex-Polish prisoners of war, and when they sent them over there to the place beyond the Arctic Circle, they didn't have any facilities built up. So the first thing they told them to do to build a camp for themselves, put up the barbed wires beyond which they were not supposed to get out. Then they told them that they will each be required to do a daily norm of so many wheelbarrows a day of ground moving. The earth was frozen, but what they were working on was a kind of a slate of graphite. In other words, this was a little kind of a deposit of graphite, and when and if that was leveled off, that was ready to be covered with concrete and would make an excellent runway because the bed was solid. Underneath it was like a solid rock. So according to how much they dug out every day, they would be getting their food rations. The Russians were making sure that this prisoners behave. So what they told them that if you don't make so many wheelbarrows a day, you only get, the percentage of what you dug out in food. And the food ration was just minimum. I mean, you were barely sustaining yourself. So once you were pretty much fallen into some sort of a trap where you couldn't make your norm, you probably were on the way out to die because the amount of food you got was proportional to the amount of wheelbarrows that you wheeled off from the runway. And Father was saying that probably in that particular runway over there, there may be every foot of ground, there may be a body buried right there next to it. And there were so many of those people dying over them. Well, Father wasn't a weakling, but he did not have all the criteria of a Superman. He got colds and other things, and he was getting to the point where wheeling up the norm was impossible. So he simply decided one day that he would probably just go for his last wheelbarrow and asked the guard that was over there whether he could go and relieve himself. And since they had no built-in facilities of any form, he had to go into the tundra and do his things. Well, he went over to the tundra and he noticed that there was a local person herding his reindeer over there, and he thought that the guy was dropping something. Like it looked like he dropped a bundle of something. So with his curiosity of what it was, he went over there, and surely enough, the man that was herding the reindeer did drop a loaf of bread wrapped in a cloth, and he just dropped it into the snow. So Father picked up that loaf of bread, first filled himself up to what it was possible, and brought the rest with him to the camp and shared with the people that were in need of that. And that thing, that one particular instant made him want to live on and go on, because he felt that there was something telling him to go ahead and survive the 5 years of hard labor to which he was sentenced. And here comes this my mother's unexplained means of knowing that things are good or bad. My mother called us that particular time that we felt this might have happened. Mother called us together and put us on our knees and said, "Pray to God for to help your father because he is in trouble." I had the feeling last night. Actually, she felt that she talked to him and that he was begging for help, and the only help we could give him is to pray for his safekeeping. And the way that he explained it was just like the same time and the same things that we were concerned about. He was living through over them. And well, he did survive the winter, and the following year, there was an agreement reached between the Polish government in England and Joseph Stalin that some of those people that were captured by the Russians would be turned back into soldiers, and the British would be the ones that would furnish them their arms and the uniforms, and that the Russians would allow them to get out of Russia into Persia, which is the area of Iran and Iraq right now. So one day they woke up, and the loudspeakers who normally used to play the Volga Boatsman this time was playing something jolly, something like a Polish melody, and the voice came through them, and they addressed them as comrades, not as slaves, but as fellow soldiers. So the Russians let them get out of Russia, and he did. He joined the army of General Anders, and took part in the fight against the Germans in Italy, and survived the war. So that was father's story. But I guess we can stop here to continue some other time.
Okay, well, we have, okay, we're going.
Okay.
Let's start them off somewhere.
So the war was over, and we found ourselves still living in the village of Rataje near Chodzież, by my uncles and my godfather Stanley. However, since the war was over, we wanted desperately to get back to Kościelec, to our old home, and basically this was the place where the teacher, and we were expecting that after the war, father is going to come back home from wherever he was. And not knowing exactly where he was, but we had some good idea that he was still alive, because during the war, one day we got a package that was addressed to us from Turkey. Do I continue talking? Okay. Well, it was addressed to us from Turkey. In that package, there was some almonds and some sweets, and it was a package that the father would probably prepared and sent to us. That came to us because Turkey at that time, they were kind of neutral. They were not fighting the Allies, and they were not fighting the Germans. So we had an idea that father might have been in with the Polish soldiers somewhere in the Middle East. But getting back to the war being over, we waited till March, because there was no way that you could get on a train in January or February, because that was the war was still going on in Germany, even though that Poland was already liberated by the Soviets. The war was going on in Germany proper, and there were big battles still going on all over Germany. Well, came March, we finally found a train going in the direction of Wrocław. Actually, the train went to Bydgoszcz, which was about halfway down to our place. And then hopefully in Bydgoszcz there would be a train to go to Wrocław, where we could catch the train and travel the last leg of our journey back home to where we lived before the war. We did that. It took us about a week to get home. It was not an easy travel to go back, because the trains, if you ever seen Dr. Zhivago, that the trains were just as packed as what is shown in Dr. Zhivago. Anybody who could cheat or steal a place in on the train would get onto the train. Well, we fortunately were getting some help by some noble gentlemen, and the whole family was pushed in one cart. We were all standing, but nonetheless we made the connection in Bydgoszcz to Wrocław, and from over there we walked down to Kościelec, to the house. We found that the house was empty. There was no furniture in there. The local people looted it up, and when they found out that we came back, they started returning the furniture. This was not our original furniture. It was somebody else's furniture, but needless to say, we did have a bedrooms and some pots to cook and so forth, you know, that we got back from the local people. And with that, we were awaiting the formal end of war, which eventually came in May. But just as the war ended, there was a lady that used to teach with my father, and actually my father was her boss. Her name was Mrs. Kuzawska. She came over and opened the school. And whether she did it with the sanction of the official government agencies, I don't know, probably yes. She was acting as the principal. We were all now somewhere around 15 years old, 14, 15 years old, and most of us only had second grade education, because we never went to the third grade because of the war when it started. There was no school during the war. And Mrs. Kuzawska started a school year that lasted from the end of the war, which was in May. She opened up the school in May and continued the school, teaching us the various grades and various subjects that would be taught in grade 3, 4, and 5. There was something that we did skip, and that was like Polish history. We would not study that, but we had a lot of mathematics and a lot of Polish language. And of course, everybody was learning new words every day, and well, that's what schools are for. But one thing that Mrs. Kurzawska did, she was determined that she is going to get her class of the older kids, like myself and my brother George, TED through the school and into the high school the following year, which was in 1946. She wanted us to be able to take an entrance exam to the high school in the local town of Inowrocław. She succeeded. There was 16 or 17 boys and girls, and she taught us everything she basically knew herself. And in early 1960, Mrs. Kurzawska arranged for most of our group, which was about 15, 16 boys and girls, to take the entrance exam for high school. And amazingly, we found out by the time that the high school year opened up that every one of us was accepted to the high school. And that was probably an achievement that must be somewhere in history of the world, that kids that didn't go to school could finish up the entire grade school and prepare themselves to take the entrance exam for high school in about 9 months' time. That was amazing. Well, anyhow, while we were living over there in the school, we were asked to move out from the principal's quarters to an attic, and there was another nightmare of one room and one kitchen type of a situation. We made a kitchen out of the rooms that was over there. And well, basically, the life didn't change much for us because we were living again, like during the war, in one bedroom and a small kitchen over there to cook food on. But at least we all were going to TED. Myself and George were going to high school, and Stanley was going to grade school. He was a bright boy. He taught himself how to read while we all were working during the war. I remember one day when my mother was supposed to go to work for a farmer over there, was leaving for work, and he says, "Mommy, please tell me, what is this little letter here? How do you pronounce it?" And mother told him that it was an E with a little thing underneath it, and that was pronounced N. So he finally figured out how to read the papers all by himself. That was amazing that how bright that guy was, you know. And he, the guy who suffered polio and so on, and he just started school, and his schooling was normal, and yet he was above the normal in performance. The war ended, like I told you, and of course the local government that was supposed to be Polish was controlled by the Soviets, and our freedoms and our liberties were strongly curtailed. The government was playing tricks with the people. They gave land to the peasants, took it away from the landlords and gave it to the peasants, but they didn't give them tools to cultivate the land. So when the first harvest came in, there was nothing to harvest. The land was in the hands of the peasants, but unfortunately, a single peasant or a family can only do so much with a hoe and without the proper tools to run a 200-acre farm. So as a punishment to those people that they couldn't actually keep up themselves, they said, well, obviously we can't all have horses and machinery, therefore we're going to collectivize all the land again and make it into one big farm, and you all jointly will operate the machinery, and we will share the crops between ourselves. And of course the state is, because because it's furnishing you machinery, is going to get a bulk of all the products that you have grown, all the products that you have cultivated. The grain of any form, the first thing 90% went to the state and the rest went to the farmers. It was divided by them, and there was just barely enough to feed them. Basically, the farmers or the peasants were no better off under this government-controlled system than they were under the control of Count Poninsky, who basically owned them. But be it as it may, the situation got worse, and father decided that he would not come home. We did establish contact with father, and the people returning from the West back to Poland were experiencing tremendous hardship. A lot of them were arrested because their positions in the Western government or the Western army, like in the case of my father, they were not tolerated by the Soviet-controlled government of Poland. So my father decided that rather than he coming home, he will try to get us out of Poland, and basically rather than uniting ourselves after the war in Poland, we would unite ourselves somewhere else that he would that he was at that time, and that was in England. Okay, well, father, instead of returning to Poland, was making arrangements for us to leave Poland. And one day my mother got a telephone call, which unfortunately had to be received in the local post office because we did not have the phone in the school. There was no local telephone system in that the only telephone was pretty much national telephone, and if you wanted to talk to somebody, you had to walk to the post office in order to use the instrument. I don't know whether anybody ever paid for it, but that's where the telephone was. Well, we got a telephone, and a person that addressed himself as Lieutenant somebody said that he had a message from our father and that he would like to meet with our family or some member of our family to explain what the situation is. And my mother couldn't go, so she sent Ted, my brother Ted, to meet that individual, and that individual explained to Ted that he has French passports for everybody of us, and that my father has arranged that we would leave Poland from the place of Kraków on a specified date, and that he will give us the date, the exact date in the coming time within a week or so, and that we would be traveling out of Poland, but the necessity was that we were supposed to be pretending that we were French nationals returning back to France under the agreement that Poland and France has signed right after the war. And the explanation was there. We did not see the passports. He told us within the week or so, he told Mother this time, because Mother went to meet him, that we should travel to the town of Kraków, to the city of Kraków, and over there will be a person that we're supposed to contact. The person will hand us the passports that we need and give us the traveling documents for the train that's supposed to be departing within a day or the same day, within 24 hours of our arrivals. Well, we, of course, left school. We went to the local elder of the city, who of the village of Kościelec. He was like appointed the executive of the village, appointed by the local, by the regional government. So he had the authority of signing papers if you needed something. So Mother went to him and asked him whether he would be willing to give us a permit to travel to Poznań this time. She didn't tell him that we would go to Kraków. She said to Poznań. And he says, well, Mrs. Kasprzyk, you know better than I how to write things like that. He signed the piece of blank paper, gave it to her, and said, you put whatever you need to put in there, and everything will be fine. He said, as far as I'm concerned. He signed it, stamped it, and Mother filled it out so that we could travel to Kraków. And the following day, we started on the train, and we got to the train in Wrocław, and from over there we traveled towards Kraków. Well, unfortunately, there was some problems with the Ukrainians further east, in the further east Poland. They were blowing up bridges and things like that, and one of the bridges between our destination and Kraków was blown off, and we were detoured. And that detour took about 12 hours, basically making us late to meet that train in Kraków. When we arrived over there, there was the place where you load your train was completely empty. There were some local militia guarding there was a train standing in the local militia was guarding that train, and Mother figured out that was the train that we're supposed to catch. But as we were passing by, somebody walking by, Mother says, if you came over to catch this train, just keep going. Don't even look at it. Keep going. and the person met us on as we were getting out of the station, and introduced himself, and he says that he was contacted by this captain or lieutenant, whoever was originally in Wrocław, and that we should come with him. We went with him, and he says, well, the train was captured by the local authorities. There was a count of something from the region of Krakow, who wanted to take with him some pictures which the authorities considered to be national treasures, and one of the militiamen saw the pictures, and he went by the book and notified his superiors. Superiors came in, and they found out that the whole train was a bogus train, and everybody on that train got arrested. We were late to be arrested by about 6 hours. So that was one of the things that happened, and we believe that it happened like many other things, that it's not a coincidence, it's a miracle that it happened. And one of those things that I believe strongly in my heart is that we have always with us when we traveled, leaving Poland, we took the picture of the Black Madonna with us. Mother always kept it in one of her suitcases, and I think just because of that, we were spared being arrested, and God knows what our fate would have been otherwise. But we missed the train. Well, needless to say, the person with whom we spent the night sent us back to the station. We bought the tickets and boarded the train to where? To Poznań, back to Ciotka, or my aunt Maria, where we used to live there during the war for about a year and a half over there. So we are back on the train to Poznań, and over there we are now. We started to talk to Ciotka Marysia, or Aunt Maria, and her sister Josephine, that you remember, Richard. Her husband was a railroad worker, and he had some connections that he said, well, there is a smuggling operation going on, and the smuggling is that food from Poland is going to Berlin, and those guys that bring the food over there are paid in gold. So that is, gold is a very, very valuable commodity. Food is plentiful in Poland, so smuggling is a good profession. He says he will make some arrangements that at least, you know, we could get to Berlin from Poland, trying to do the same thing what those guys are doing. He didn't know himself what the details were. So we decided that we'll split in two groups. Ted and I are going to try to go first, and Mother and the two other boys, George and Stanley, are going to come. If we succeed, they will come right after us. And this was now approaching the end of 1947. It was November 1947, and Ted and I took off we were introduced to a guy who was wrapped in bacon and strapped with tape, and he probably carried about 25-30 pounds of bacon with him, and his destination was Berlin. Now, to get from Poland to Berlin, you had to cross the Polish-German border, and Germany was at that time pretty much divided into Soviet-controlled Germany and the Western Allied-controlled Germany. The Western Allied were basically at the river Elbe. That's how far they got, and of course the Soviets did conquer Berlin, so they were occupying the eastern part of Germany, and Berlin was in the east part of Germany. It was actually, when the border was set at that time, Berlin was only about 90 miles away from the Polish border. So we, Ted and I, and this other gentleman, started off in Poznań, and from Poznań we got onto a freight train that was heading west. And the reason why it was easy to catch a freight train going west, because at that time the Russians were stealing Germany blind. They were taking anything that could be unscrewed, moved, or whatever it is, and they were putting it onto railroad cars and sending it to the east, back to Soviet Union. And in order to have more of everything, they had to send empty cars back to Germany. So there were plenty of trains going west at that particular time. So the three of us, Ted, myself, and this third guy, we were going to Berlin, basically on a freight train. We jumped the freight train just at the moment when it started moving, and hid ourselves in the shadows. The reason why we did that, because the Polish militia inspected the trains. They were suspecting that there were people trying to escape from Poland or smuggle to Germany something, and they didn't want that smuggling operation to go on. So they were inspecting the train. Fortunately, they didn't have dogs, so that was good. We jumped the trains, and when the train stopped, we jumped off. And when we saw a train moving in the direction of in the western direction, we jumped on that one, so you could change the train. And in that border zone over there, we actually changed train twice. We were on the original. We went about, I don't know, maybe 5 miles or so. We jumped out of that one. We jumped on another one. That one started turning, so we all jumped out from that thing. He looked like he is going to go some other direction. So we jumped out of that one, and then another started moving. We jumped on this one, and that was the right one. About 5 hours later, this was at night. About 5 hours later, just before dawn broke, we were on the other side of the border in the German town of Hamburg, not Hamburg, in the German town of Frankfurt am Oder. And over there, once you were on the other side, you could buy tickets, providing you had a permit from the local traveling authorities, because the Germans were under the strict control of the Russians at that time. Well, but they were still running the trains, and the civilian transportation was run by the Germans. Well, so those two other guys sent me to get the tickets because I could speak German better than any of them guys could, and I went over there to the window where they sell tickets. I took some cigarettes that my father had sent us to Poland, and I put the cigarettes in, and I said I want three tickets to Berlin. And the guy opened the box, took out 4 cigarettes, left the rest of them in the box or the package, and said that will be 7 marks and 80 pfennigs or whatever it is for the 3 of them, which was very cheap to buy this. And of course the 4 cigarettes that he took out of the thing, and returned the rest. Now that was noble of the guy. He didn't take the whole pack with him, and he probably could have had it if he wanted to. And once we had the tickets, we just went onto the train, and by noon the same day we were in Berlin. And of course Berlin was horrible shape. There wasn't a house standing. I mean, there wasn't a building standing over there. The streets were open up because somebody bulldozed the path for 1 or 2 cars to pass, and that's about it. And the rest of the thing was in rubble. But there were still some people living in there, and when we went down to those people that were the friends of our smuggler, they were very kind. They put us up because we didn't sleep for 24 hours. They put us up and say, well, we'll wake you up next day about 8 o'clock in the morning, and then you'll be on your own again. So that's when we, at 8 o'clock the following day, we just decided that we parted with them and went back to the same station that we arrived at, and took a train to a place that we found on the map. I mean, we didn't do that without some preparation. We knew about what direction at least to travel and what was the specific town. I don't remember the name of that town, but that was as far as the train could go without going into the West Germany. But while we were in Berlin, we walked through the city, and there were signs like, you are now leaving the French sector and you are approaching the American sector, you are approaching the Soviet sector. And those were signs in German, in French, and in English. And unfortunately, the embassies would not talk to any civilian that ever showed up. We were trying to get to the British embassy, but that guy who was standing in front of the embassy told him that we wouldn't be welcome in there at this time. We should go somewhere else, to a civilian camp, to a refugee camp. And that's the last thing we wanted to do. Well, needless to say, there was no way out to go through any embassy, so we did our own planning before we left Poland, and I bought again some tickets on the train as far as it was going, and we did travel that direction, and just about when the sun was setting down, we arrived in a village or a town. I'm not quite sure how big that place was, but you couldn't go any further on that particular train. That train was going back from that thing back to Berlin. But the train was full of people. And one thing about it was there was a German who was escaping from Russia. And he was sharing his information with everybody in the car, which was a passenger car, and all those guys were Germans. And he was telling his story, how he got out of Russia, how helpful were the Polish people to him, and now he was heading, and he said he's not going to stay in East Germany. He's going to go to West Germany. And we thought that we had somebody who knew how to get to West Germany, and we watched for him. And when the train stopped, the people got out, and in about 5 minutes, everybody disappeared. There was no crowds. There was some people walked in. There was a big gate over there. That gate closed. We couldn't get in. So we decided to go a little field road next to that place that was locked up and sat in the bushes over there till it gets a little bit darker. And when it started getting dark, very quickly fog started coming in, and the fog built up that you couldn't see 5 feet in front of you. And we were saying, well, we're going to go in that direction, straight down this road, wherever it goes. And fortunately, we could confirm that our decision was right. There were 2 boys that came by over there, and they were laughing, joking, and making all kind of cracks. And I got out from the bushes and asked them, where is the German border, the demarcation line between East and West Germany? And he said, if you go this road, you can't miss it. You will get in. And he says, but you're going to get stopped by the Russians, because they are living there right by the border. And well, we said, well, what choice do we have? You know, we're going to go in. And we waited till the fog came in, and the fog did really came in strong, and you couldn't see, 5 feet in front of you. And suddenly we hear that somebody is pulling a cart, and it is not a cart with a horse-driven cart, but a person-driven cart. It's either like a push cart or pull cart. And we decided that we're going to follow that cart because it made an awful lot of ruckus and noise. And we just went maybe about 50 feet behind the cart. We couldn't see it, but somebody was huffing and puffing and pulling that thing, and suddenly a Russian voice came out, and in Russian ordered the person to stop. And the person apparently was a woman, and she said, "Is that you, Vasil?" In German to him. And he says, "Yeah, Hilda, yeah, that's me, Hilda." And she says, "Well, if you would be any type of gentleman, you would help me up with this cart up the hill." And the Russian soldier, apparently who was the guard over there, decided that he will help her pull the cart up the hill, where the where she was apparently working for the Russians because she knew them well. And when the car started going to the left of us, we kept on going, and before I knew what happened, I found myself next to a barbed wire fence. And not only that, but there was somebody on the bicycle going the other way down the road. He just moved that fence enough to get his bicycle and himself through. I went through the same opening that this guy got out. We didn't say a word to each other. And Ted was next to me, and he went straight through into the barbed wire. He apparently didn't see the opening. And he got entangled in there. I grabbed him, pulled him way around. He followed me, and we go in about maybe 50 more feet. And there were lights. It was like a different world. There were the street lights. There was no street lights in the whole of Germany or in Poland at that time. There were street lights. There was people walking, and I finally asked a person that was walking on the street, where are we in the Western Zone? And he says, yeah, you are in. He named the place that had the same name as we traveled to on the train, but it was on the other side of the demarcation zone. It was basically not the British, but the American zone of Germany. So there was no problem whatsoever to get to the train station. We found the train station. There was no soldiers. There was nobody patrolling that place. Only the Russians were having patrols. The Americans did not. Nobody else had it. So when we got to the train station, we asked them, when is the train leaving to some main I forgot, you know, our direction, but we did, like I told you before, studied them up very closely, and we knew what direction we wanted to go and what specific destination we wanted to get to. Now the town that we wanted to get was one of the bigger towns in Germany. So that again was very cheap transportation on but this time you paid in German marks, and you didn't have to have any cigarettes to bribe anybody. You could travel as far as you wanted. So we bought the tickets all the way to the destination. We had to change trains in one place, and we were heading that particular time. So the thing is, we left Berlin in about 8 o'clock in the morning. By the evening, we were at the end of the Russian zone, and into the next night, we were traveling to a place, and I forgot what it is, but we were traveling to catch a plane, to catch a train to the place where the Polish army was stationed in Germany. And we arrived over there probably about 5 o'clock in the morning. About 6 o'clock in the morning, we were on another train heading towards the Belgian border, and the Polish occupation force was in Germany at that particular place, and that was our destination. So by 6 o'clock that evening, we were already at our destination, and we thought that we're going to talk to the guy who is in charge over there, which was General Maciek. And we walked in from the station to the street over there, and basically we wanted to find where General Maciek headquarters was. One of the soldiers, Polish soldiers, told us where General Maciek headquarters is, but he also mentioned, he said, well, he won't see you. Well, we decided we'll go anyhow, you know, so we went over there to General Maciek headquarters, and the MP stopped us, and he says, no, you can't see him. Besides, the general isn't in. Well, at that time, a car pulled up, and the general got out of there, and here is Mr. Maciek. And this guy salutes him, and he says, who are those two guys? And he says, well, they insisted to see you, sir. And he says, oh, and we introduced ourselves. We said that we just came out from Poland. And he says, well, I can't take care of you, but you should go and you tell them that I have sent you into the civilian camp. And he said, by the way, when did you leave Poland? And we told him, you know, when we left Poland, that was, you know, like a day before. He says, what did you do? You bought the ticket and travel over here? We said, no, we escaped from Poland. And he says, well, that's very brave of you boys. He says, now you go over there and tell them I have sent you, you know. So we went over there. Well, it just did as much as a grain of salt in a soup, basically. There was, he had very little influence over the civilian operation over there, but nonetheless, there was what they call a liaison officer between this Polish force and the force that my father was in. And we went over there and we told them that our father was an officer in the 2nd Corps of the Polish Army. And he said, well, do you have any proof? And we said, well, all we have is a picture of him. And he looked at the picture. Oh, he said, I can see the insignia, the regimental insignia, and I know exactly where he is. He says, so he called in my dad on the military phone over there and made the arrangement for Dad to speak with him. And he told him that his 2 sons are in Meppen in Germany, and that they are going to be there, you know, until something happens, whatever that the next step is going to be. And Father took a leave of absence and took a train from not train, but plane from England to Belgium, and from Belgium on a train he came over, and he made arrangements for us to get from Meppen to Italy, and we were on a truck when we were called back, and he said, now that somebody wants to see you. And that somebody was my father, and that was the first time I saw my father after 7 years. I was already on the way to Italy, and we spent the night together, and in the morning we were on to Italy, but no mother, no Stanley, and no George. Those 2 weren't there. So he decided that he asked us, you know, where the mother wanted to say, and we said, well, the arrangement was that if we succeed, we should tell mother, and we send our mother a postcard, but that's all we did, you know. And she apparently had some feeling, and again this extrasensory sensory perception or whatever it is between the tie between my mother and him when he did not give up. He sent us off to Italy, and he stayed over there for about a week. And the days were passing, and every day he went to meet every train that was coming into that station from both directions, from either Belgium or from Germany. And his furlough was ending, and he was giving up on the thought that mother is going to make it, and yet he went to meet the last train about almost 5 days later or 6 days later, and tomorrow morning he is going to travel back to England. And the train came and left, and he's still standing on the platform, and there is a little woman with 2 children walking in his direction, and she was limping very severely. And needless to say, he stood there and waited, and my mother wanted to ask the soldier where to get to the camp, and she looked at him, and that was her husband.
Get me crying.
Well, it was, you know, it was a moving situation, no doubt about it, you know. So they met after many years of separation, and of course he made arrangement for her to go back to Italy right after us. And I remember when I was sitting on top of a water tower over there. I climbed in Italy. There was a camp, and there was the highest place of it was a place where they stored water. It was a water tower, and I hear the PA system going on, and he says, "Well, Andrew Kasprzyk, come over to the office." And I'm sitting over there, you know, not knowing what to do, but I thought maybe they saw me in the tower over there. So I went over to the office, and there is Mother, and I resented it. My freedom was gone. There was nobody there before to tell me anything. Here comes Mother, you know, after almost 2 weeks of not seeing her. Needless to say, we did have a great reunion and nice treatment, because as an officer's wife or family, we were getting a preferential treatment. We were somewhat considered to be somewhat special, and I don't know why that was, but nonetheless they made arrangements for all of us in that particular camp to get onto a train that would bring us to Calais, and from Calais to Dover on a boat, and then in England we would meet up with my father again, and that was before the Christmas. That was somewhere around the 20th of December.
Tell that how your mother got out of Poland.
That is a good question and a long story. Can we quit now for a second?
You have a total of 20
Were
minutes.
you crying too?
Yeah, of course. Go.
Well, I told you that we all arrived in England, but I didn't tell you how my mother got out of Poland. Well, when we got out of Poland and arrived at our destination with the Polish armed forces in Germany. We sent a postcard to my mother telling her that our journey was successful, but it is very difficult and maybe she should not be doing that. But we have said that, but my mother had a mind of her own, and obviously she talked to Aunt Josephine's husband, and he made arrangements where she didn't have to jump freight trains. She was able to get a permission to travel from Poznan to Berlin directly. And from Berlin to West Germany, she would have to make it on her own. However, there were some contacts in Berlin that would help her. While Mother set off on her journey, she with the bags packed and the Holy Black Madonna in her place in one of the suitcases, she took off for Berlin, and that trip was pretty much uneventful. She made it to Berlin. In Berlin, she met somebody who, for a fee of few dollars, agreed to get her across the east-west German border somewhere that in some location which I do not know. But she would have escort across the border, and that was something that she thought was a very good thing to have. So she set out from Berlin to the place where the borders are located, and once arrived in that place, she did indeed make a contact with a guide. But it turned out to be that the guide led them directly into the hands of patrolling Soviet soldiers. The Soviet soldiers arrested everybody who was in the group, and when they, after the arrest, they brought him back into their building or their headquarters, and interrogated every one of them. Obviously, most of those people were smugglers, and they were confiscating the contraband, whatever they were smuggling. When it got to my mother told the man who was interrogating her that she had an ailing mother on the other side of the border, and that she and her two children are trying to go over there because she needs help. And the soldier said, okay, which is your baggage? And she pointed out the baggage, and he says, open up the baggage. So she opened up the baggage, and the first thing that showed up was the picture of the Holy Madonna. And this guy says, so you are Polish, he says. And he says, I know, he says, because my mother used to worship the Holy Lady. He says, and I respect that. He says, well, why don't you take your children and go? And my mother actually closed the baggage, took her two boys, and set out across the border. And while doing that, she broke her foot, or sprained her foot. And yet, not knowing where the border ends, she finally made it across to a place, safe place, but she was very, very, very stricken by the fact that her foot was no longer normal, and every step she took was a painful situation for her. So she did get across the border, and of course then, like Ted and I did, she bought the tickets to the same destination where we were in Meppen in Germany, and that's where she met my father when he was just about to depart the area on the platform in Meppen. So that was her story getting out of Poland.
Okay.
When she arrived in Meppen, and father made arrangement for her to send her over to Italy, where we already, Ted and I were already. We finally got together again. Now, father knew that his family was out of Poland, but he had to return to England, and our departure from Italy depended on having verified us as members of his family. That was not a big process, because the Poles could do all kind of manipulation when it came down to forging papers or providing papers for their own kind. They did very well in providing us with all kind of papers. One incident that I wanted to mention is when we were traveling from Germany to Italy. Actually, I was traveling as a Polish soldier, because civilians were not allowed to travel on military vehicles, so they gave me an old French uniform that had a couple holes in it. I guess the guy must have been shot in the back or something like that, because it looked like bullet holes. And I wore that uniform. It was definitely not tailored for my size or to suit me. But we got over to one place which I never forget, and we got down to one place in Milano, which is Milan in Italy, and there is a world famous restaurant, and we went to the restaurant and we decided to have supper. So sure, the guy set up a table for 12. There was a person who could speak Italian. We had no problem ordering. He took our orders. I ordered veal parmesan, my favorite. I never ate it before, but I ordered veal parmesan. And the guy wrote it down, and he named some wines, and he wrote it down, and the wines. I had a glass of wine, and then comes the dinner. And here he comes in, and he brings in, it looked like a wash bowl full of spaghetti and sauce, not meat sauce, just sauce in it. And he says, well, gentlemen, he says, you are in this Alfredo's or whatever it is restaurant, and we honor your request. He says, but unfortunately we don't have what you have ordered, so here is the food that you're going to eat. And everybody had the same thing, spaghetti, and everybody ordered something different. And that was the day and time of the war, 1947. It's a funny story which I never forget.
Now you're in
in the same place when the other guys were. Actually, what happened was that the jeep that I was riding in, one of the Polish guys decided that the army is not going to miss that jeep, so he sold it to an Italian for 2 million liras. And to put everything in perspective, 1,000 liras was $1. So basically he got $1,000 out of that. But I don't know how he got away with selling that truck, that Jeep, but he did. Once we got to England, we met again up with my father. He was stationed in a place known as Northumberland in England, and there was also what they call it a camp or a housing provision for civilians. So this was after the war, and my father, as a soldier, still as a soldier, was preparing to leave the service and enter into a civilian life. And while doing that, he acquired the family, and George and I were of the high school year. And in England, they had a Polish high school. And my father made arrangement to send both George and I to the Polish high school. So the next year, I was studying the regular high school materials in this place. I even forget what it was, but I believe this location over there was Riddlesworth, something to that effect in England. That's where the school was located. It was an old war, not old, but a war. During the war, it was an Air Force base. There was a landing strip over there, and a lot of Quonset hut in which we, the boys about my age, all the way through about 20, were living over there and studying. This was like the boarding school. So back in England, we were pretty much separated again from my father and mother, but that was nice life in the boarding school. It wasn't bad. Played soccer. Unfortunately, I didn't do very good in Latin, and on my second year, when I was, that was the third year of high school, I was told not to return to school because I was too old. Well, so I went to work in the place where my father was running a little accommodation for a lot of people that work in the textile industry. They were all Poles, and that was supposed to prepare them for the life among the British as civilians. So basically they were out of the army. They were now civilians working for their own wages. But the work they were doing, they were working in textile industry. And that was the noisiest of places. I remember the factory that actually employed us was owned by a guy the name of Croshaw, and Mr. Croshaw, or the company Croshaw, employed a lot of Poles, And my father and mother were running the place where all those guys were, not all of the guys, but some of the guys were staying in. Then they were all Poles, and they were getting Polish meals, and well, basically they felt very, very noble. And of course, my father was driving my mother probably insane by making her cook day in, day out, because she had to cook breakfast and supper. The lunches they fixed themselves. There was provision left for them to fix their own lunch. Most of them wouldn't have a lunch. They would, right after work, they would go to the local pub and have a couple beers and a sandwich, and then they would come and eat supper about 8 o'clock or whatever when the supper was ready. So that was life in England. And few years, actually 4 years later, the government of the United States, and actually that was during the administration of President Harry Truman, he invited the Polish soldiers to come to, Polish soldiers and their families, to come to the United States as displaced persons. They recognized the fact that the Treaty of Yalta was not necessarily the best thing that happened to those that were fighting along the side of the British against the German in World War II, and as some sort of a reparation for I guess the betrayal of the Polish soldiers who could not return back to Poland. The American government, the British government, decided that they would be taking up absorb the Polish soldiers and their families into their own society, and we were allowed to come to the United States. And in 1951, on the last day of January, we came over here into the United States and started a new life under different conditions. But once again, the Holy Madonna was in one of the baggages that Mother was carrying on her journey to the United States. Right now, it's somewhere in Stanley's house.
Okay, we're up to when you came and then you went into military service.
So now you're in America.
I have arrived in the United States on 1st of February 1951.
20 years old.
Upon arrival, we were actually looking for a place to live, but my Aunt Sally, which was my mother's sister, who lived here in the United States for the last 20 years or more. I guess she lived since World War. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyhow, Aunt Sally was very gracious. She allowed us to live for a time being in her basement in a suburban house somewhere on the very far west side of Chicago. And we basically were very independent from Sally, except that we did need a shelter. Father was looking for a place to rent or buy, and while we all found ourselves work, I mean all meaning myself, George, Ted, and Father was working. Mother was like usual the housekeeper and the main feeder of the crowd. and Stanley was too young to be doing anything except going to school, because after all he was the youngest, and so he registered in school into Holy Trinity, which was a Polish high school, Polish Catholic high school. They did teach it in English, not in Polish, and of course they were under the assumption that since he is coming from Europe, he is going to be at least a year behind the children that are going to the high school. So they put him in the class like the first grade of high school, but Stanley was way above that, and after the first 3 months they decided that he ought to go at least to the second grade of high school. So they moved him up by a year to finish up his high school from over there, and I was going to work. First, I got work in a Linko bleach factory. They were manufacturing bleach for washing purposes. It was packed in glass containers, and when you met with an accident where a carton of those things that were contained four-gallon bottles of bleach broke, your clothes was basically guaranteed to disintegrate the next day or after the first wash. It was just such a corrosive substance. Well, that job lasted maybe about 4 months, and the next job I got was in the paper carton factory, and that was a good job. We were making cartons for all occasions, little boxes for perfume and big boxes for bottles of whiskey. And the job was good because even though it only paid $1.40 an hour, I was able to make $140 a week working overtime. And also working in the same place was George, and basically my father found a place where he decided to move out, when he decided to move out from Aunt Sally's basement, and he purchased this. He actually, instead of renting, purchased the house, and it was on 1226 North Maplewood in Chicago. Over there, the transportation was pretty easy, but for me to go to work, it was very inconvenient because it involved walking about a mile to work. There was no bus going on in that direction. So I found another job, this time in a place that make tiles. It was the place was Kentile Corporation, and it was closer to work, and I could get there by bus. So it was a miserable place to work because the material they make tiles from is kind of an asbestos type of a mixture, and it was unhealthy. It was not a very good place to work. So about a year, about 6 months from the time that I arrived in the United States, I got a letter from the Selective Service Board, and to my surprise, it started with greetings from the President of the United States. The President and your friends and neighbors want you to report to the Selective Service for service in the armed forces of the United States. You shall report to this address at that particular time, and so on. They give me about 6 months. And I was glad when I got that letter, because that work that I was doing was not appealing to me. And the thing about it was, I wanted to go into the service because I felt that I had something to gain by going there. I was working with probably the least intelligent people in the United States. To them, I was nothing but a dumb Polak. Actually, it came from the initials of what the green card that I had said, DP, or displaced person. When I was asked, well, what are you? I would say, well, I'm a DP. So they would say, oh, you're dumb Polak. Well, that kind of was offensive. I figured out if I go into the service, I will at least distinguish myself enough by being in the service that they will no longer be calling me names. That irritated me. Well, needless to say, came February 1, 1952, I reported into the Selective Service, and they accepted me into the United States Army and sent me to a place near Chicago known as Fort Sheridan. That started my career in the Army. And this is the place where I met my friend Ginter. Ginter and I met under some circumstances that were amazing. We were both, our name both started with a K, so that was the reason why he and I were chosen to do KP on the same day. And when we were assigned to the kitchen to do the kitchen police, what they call it, KP, we were washing the dirtiest of pots and dishes, whatever they could dish out, but we enjoyed it. We were singing songs. I was singing in Polish and he was singing in German. And he started talking to me. He said he would like to be my friend. And I said, you can't be my friend, you are a German. And Pole and German cannot be a friend. And he says, well, I would still like you to be a friend. And I said, well, okay, let's settle it. And he said, let's have a fist fight. And fine, we were going to have a fist fight. So we went out and we started to go and bare knuckle fist fight. Well, fortunately, somebody says, well, if you want to fist fight, here is a set of gloves. And he bought 2 sets of gloves, boxing gloves. We put them on, and for about 2 hours, we slaughtered each other to the point that both of us were bloody noses, and anyhow, we settled our differences right there and became friends. He and I were sent to the same company to take basic training. We were actually, because again, our name starts with K. The Army goes alphabetically. They put us in the same barrack, and even though there was some other case in between us, our beds were next to each other. So we had we did well in basic training. We were all training for about 6 months. After the 6 months training, we were qualified to be soldiers, and they were giving us our assignments. Both of us were assigned to military intelligence, and we were supposed to report to Fort Meade, Maryland, for further training in the branch of military intelligence. Unfortunately, at that time, there was a senator in the United States over here by the name of Joe McCarthy, and he had some sort of a hang-up with people that came to this country that weren't citizens. He said that the United States military was being infiltrated by communists. And anybody who spoke with an accent or anything like that was a suspect to him. Well, we were supposed to be trained as members of military intelligence, which is basically to prevent people from hurting the United States by subversion. We were not allowed to attend any classes because the rules and regulations established by Congress due to McCarthy's inference that some of them may be communists made the army very shy, and they would not allow us to train. So we were sent to Fort Maryland, to Fort Meade, Maryland, to train, but there was nothing to do, just wait. Every day, a bunch of us were chosen to go and be guards, prison guards, or go and work in the motor pool on the jeeps and so forth. I was getting very, very upset, and I said to Ginter, Ginter, I am fed up. I'm going to go and volunteer for the Korean conflict. And Ginter says, hey, I go with you, but you got to do one thing. I said, what is that? Well, he says, I am a volunteer in the service, he says, and I am here for 3 years. If you extend your service for 3 years, I go with you to Korea. And I said, that sounds good. I said, besides, the rules now say that if you 3 years in the service, you can become automatically a citizen of the United States. I said, that's a good thing for me, and I will do that. So I went to the company commander, and I said that, Commander, we decided that we would like to go to Korea, volunteer for service duty in Korea, or a stretch of duty in Korea, and one of the conditions was that I would extend my service, and he said that can be done. We can extend your stay in the service for the convenience of the government, and that's what the record said for me, that I was in the service for 3 years instead of 2 years. Well, needless to say, in August of that 1952, I was on the way to Korea, and so was Ginter. And on the way to Korea, we came down through Chicago and 1226 North Maplewood, and attended my brother's Ted's wedding to Thelma. And that was when Ginter was introduced to my parents and my family. And of course, we traveled first class to Seattle, from which point we have departed for Korea. And then there were my years in spent 1 year in Korea. While I was there, we ended the war. And I would say I have personally taken taken definitely some effort away from everybody else to end the war much faster. I think they wouldn't do so well without me being there. I would say that my record in Korea was excellent. I was promoted to sergeant first class from a private to 5 grades in a period of less than a year, and I think that in itself was quite an accomplishment. But the benefit of the Army didn't come from being in Korea so much as what it did for me as an ex-member of the Army. I was privileged to have the GI Bill, which paid for my education, and other things like helped me to buy the house, and I guess promised some health service if it was required. But I think that thing has changed since that time. But the so-called GI Bill benefits were very, very beneficial to me. It allowed me to continue my education. So after the stretch in Korea, which unfortunately ended for Ginter a little bit different than me, because Ginter got wounded over there, and I really wanted to be wounded, but only because I wanted to have the Purple Heart. Unfortunately, I have no luck to be wounded, so that was probably better for everybody, because I don't know, sometimes wounds can be very severe. I remember many times where in Korea I could have been blown away, but somehow something kept me alive, and I would say that must have been my mother's prayers, and again, you know, the grace of God, because I was sitting in a bunker and a mortar round landed right in the middle, but it didn't explode. Now that's unbelievable, you know, when something like that happened. I remember that we were supposed to go to sleep in a place, and this was a bunker without the roof yet, and we left our packs and went out to get something, I guess a can of water or something like that. We came back and our packs were shredded by shrapnel. Another mortar round landed there, but this time we weren't with it, but our belongings were there. So, you know, there were times where I could have been killed over there, many times. I was sitting on top of the trench, and there goes crack, crack, 2 snapped, and the sniper was shooting at me, and he missed by about 6 inches. Those are things that happen almost every day. I was trying to repair a barbed wire fence, and a guy was holding the post, and I was swinging the sledgehammer, and he got shot through the neck and died right instantly over there. And I was standing next to him less than 3 feet away. And those things were something that I don't know why, but when I went on patrol with the people over there of that outfit, everybody wanted to go with me, because nothing ever happened over there. And when they went on patrol with somebody else, they got all shut up. So you know, something I feel that my mother's prayer did an awful lot for me, and I survived the war without a scratch because of what we believed in. Anyhow, when my tour of duty ended, I started college. I went to Chicago Technical College, and this was a school which you could finish within 3 years instead of going to 4 years to school. It was accelerated. It was specially designed for training people that were coming out of the army during World War II, to give them started in life. I took that. I think if I could do things over, I probably would have chosen a different school. But nonetheless, I did get through that school with what you call 27 months of study instead of 36 months of study. And got a job with McDonnell Douglas. The McDonnell Douglas invited us. There was a number of us in school to come over and visit. They offered us a job. I did like what McDonnell had to offer, and I accepted the offer from McDonnell Douglas and moved in with 3 other guys that I knew from school to St. Louis. The guys that I knew from school, I lost track most of them except one that was Joe Moran, who was an Irish guy. And he was, I guess, partially responsible for me meeting my wife, Patty. We found a place to live in St. Louis on West Pine Avenue. West Pine? No, Forest Park Avenue. And which was pretty close to the new cathedral. And we went, I mean, at least I made a practice to go to church every Sunday, and we were going to church. Moran was a Catholic too, and we decided that we both will go to church. And while we were going to church, we spotted those 2 cute girls walking by. One was Anne, and the other one was Patricia, and they were both Irish. And of course, my buddy Joe Moran, being what he is, a very gifted speaker, had a very good command of the English language. He was addressing the 2 young girls, and I liked both of them. They were really nice-looking girls, and we decided that we'll meet in the. Somehow the conversation led that we would meet in the International Club in St. Louis, and we did. Well, Moran took fancy to Patricia, and I was left with Anne. Well, anyhow, I wasn't left with Anne, but Anne was possible, and I was wondering whether or not those girls could be dated or not. So when we met, I asked Anne what she was doing tomorrow night, and Patricia says she's got a date. And I said, and what are you doing? And she says, well, I'm available. So I said, okay. So I said, okay. And we had a date, and then we had another date. We continued going to the International Club, and we went on picnics, and we went swimming, and Patricia inspired me. She was something unique. I mean, a woman that I could fall for, and I did. Anyhow, on one of those picnics, I simply asked Patricia whether she would like to marry me, and she said she would. So I was very grateful for that, and definitely, you know, we started dating seriously and became very, very, well, we became lovers. Really, we loved each other very much. But not not by the sense of today's television or anything like that. Innocent type love. And when Patricia was working nights and I was working days, and it was a rough type of life if you liked each other and you wanted to be together. Anyhow, I got a job with McDonald assigned to flight test department, and they needed somebody in New Mexico, so I was selected by the department to go over there and help out in New Mexico to do certain things. And of course, you know, I told Patricia that I would be going there, but before I would be going there, I did buy her a ring, and I said, well, we will consider to be ourselves engaged. I made arrangement for Patricia to be met by my parents, but unfortunately, my father was somehow convinced that I should be marrying a Polish girl instead of Irish girl, and well, that was his point of view, and he, as I understood, decided that he really didn't care to meet my fiancée. So I wrote him a nice letter. I said, well, you know, I don't have time to argue about it, but you know, it is my life. And it is my choice of way of things. I love the girl, and I'm going to marry her anyhow, with or without his consent. And I said, I really don't need his consent. So anyhow, we got engaged, and I took off for New Mexico, and over there in White Sand, Missile Range, I was doing my duties, whatever they were. And then I wrote a letter to Patricia, and I told her that if she would come over the Christmas holidays, we will get married. And I had no idea what it takes to get married, but I knew that when I get Patricia over there, she will figure out how we're going to get married. And surely enough, we went over to talk to the local priest, and we told him that we intend to get married. And he says, well, that would take at least 6 months to arrange. And I don't know, but Patty was talking to him somehow and convinced him that it should be done much faster than 6 months. And of course, the papers that were required was the, I guess, marriage license from the local Otero County clerk, and Patricia got it. She went over there to the office. I had absolutely no idea, you know, what Otero County city clerk looked like, or who she was, or who he was. Anyhow, we did get the marriage license, and we got the priest to pretty much consent to marry us. And on December 27, 1958, we got married. And of course, we lived in New Mexico for almost 2 years. 1 year, 2 years, 2 years. And that's where our first baby was born, Jenny. she was born in New Mexico. And from New Mexico, apparently the same type of effort was needed in California. So we traveled from New Mexico to California for another year. And those were good days because beside my salary, I was getting $10 a day extra money. And those days, that was a lot of money. And that allowed us for, well, at least to catch up a little bit financially because we both were not really wealthy people to really, well, let me put it this way. We did have 2 pots to our name, and that's about what we had. When the tour of duties ended in California, I came back to St. Louis. While in New Mexico and other places, I was taking additional courses. I was seriously thinking about advanced degree, and I wanted to work towards something more than what I have in my undergraduate degree. So while we came back to St. Louis, I decided to take some courses in SIU, and when I had what I thought enough courses, I went to St. Louis University and I asked them whether I could enroll in the master's degree in electrical engineering. They allowed me to do that. And in many years past, and many children later, many years and at least
Name the children.
the who
Name the children.
and 4 children later. And 4 and 5 children later, no, 4 children. In 1970, I got a degree. In 1970,
All right, go.
and then of course, you know, there came in, after Jenny, came in Johnny. After Johnny came in Elizabeth. After Elizabeth comes Anne. After Anne came David. After David came Richard. And then I got, in 1970, I got a degree of Master of Science in Electrical Engineering awarded by St. Louis University. And my father and mother came and they took all the kids, our kids, and they were feeding them candy and all kind of things, and they were puking all over the place. But nonetheless, I did get my degree. So that was it. And of course, okay. So I started working on an advanced degree, and in between getting my degree and what else happened, we had our family, and we had Jenny, and then come Johnny, and then come Elizabeth, Betsy, and then come Annie, and then come David, and finally came Richard. So our 6 children came. Unfortunately, we lost Johnny at birth. A week later, he lived about a week, and we lost him. Something that I don't know what happened, but he had some sort of disastrous disaster kidney problem or something like that. Anyhow, the rest of us, however, did survive, and today they are very good citizens of the community. So all our children have now children, and we are very proud of our grandchildren. And of course, I'm still married to the same lady, Patricia, and we are going to be married, or well, we were married 45 years last December 27. So that is a long time. And last December 27 was 2003. So we looking forward to another 45 years of happy life together.